CD Projekt Red's head of their Krakow studio, John Mamea, said this in an interview with GameSpot just last month. "I think it's a bad idea to do microtransactions after you release a game. It seems like it's very profitable though. It's probably a hard decision for the guy that runs the business to decide if we should do it or not. But if everyone hates it, why would we do something like that and lose the goodwill of our customers?" Now, on post-launch plans for Cyberpunk 2077, he said, "The Witcher 3's free DLC with big paid expansions was a good model for us. It worked pretty well for The Witcher 3. I don't see why we would not try to replicate that model with Cyberpunk 2077. We're not talking about that yet, but it seems like that would be the smart way to go." Now, it was actually just 2 years ago, just around this time of the year, where there was some concern, some speculation that Cyberpunk 2077 was going to be a games as a service. Now, CD Projekt Red immediately came out with a statement pretty much putting concerns to rest. They responded on Twitter with the now infamous, "Worry not, when thinking about Cyberpunk 2077, think nothing less than The Witcher 3, huge single-player open-world story-driven RPG, no hidden catch, you get what you pay for, no BS, just honest gaming like with Wild Hunt. We leave greed to others." Now, the problem with comparing Cyberpunk 2077 to The Witcher 3 is that it's not entirely the same thing, as Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be having some sort of multiplayer. We really have no idea what it's actually going to look like. Now, right now, these concerns that popped up 2 years ago are back because a lot of people are very curious about how the multiplayer will be monetized, and these concerns erupted based on an investors or earnings call that happened just a few days ago. Now, the characterization of this call has been, I wouldn't say it's been misinterpreted, but it's up for debate. Now, a lot of people have opinions. Some people are like, CDPR is turning into Electronic Arts, this is the end, and then there's some saying, well, we should be cautious, and then there's others that are just saying there's no reason at all to be concerned because this is CD Projekt Red. They definitely are always listening to consumers and they won't pull any shady BS. But honestly, I've learned my lesson with that. After Bethesda, Rockstar Games, BioWare, so on and so forth, all these beloved studios, they changed once they saw that live service money. So I definitely understand the concerns. But we have a lot of articles like this one coming from Game Pressure. Although we still don't have any precise information about what the multiplayer will look like, we found out that there will be microtransactions in it, although that certain word microtransactions is never brought up in that investor call. But this is what they continue saying. The president of the management board, Adam Kaczynski, assures that they will be implemented in a thoughtful way and in accordance with the company's policy. They will offer an appropriate ratio of quality to price. It is worth mentioning that the whole project is still in its early stages of development, and the developers plan to add it to the game only a while after release. And for what it's worth, if you don't already know, single-player paid expansions are already confirmed. They're going to be coming first before multiplayer ever is implemented into the game. So comparing this to like Rockstar Games saying that this is the next GTA Online isn't entirely comparable at this moment. Basically because Grand Theft Auto Online is the reason why GTA 5 never got its single player expansions, and with Cyberpunk 2077 it's confirmed we are getting single player expansions long before multiplayer is ever implemented, and multiplayer probably won't be coming until, I would assume, late 2021, maybe even that's at the earliest. Now, before we proceed forward, I actually do think it's important that you hear specifically what CD Projekt Red's executives said about monetization of Cyberpunk 2077, and you can form your own opinion of what that actually means, but here's what's been said.
Yeah, and as far as the monetization on the multiplayer for Cyberpunk is concerned, we believe right now it's definitely too early to share any details on that or give guidance. The project is in relatively early stage. We keep experimenting. That's our first multiplayer game. And we check different options and possibilities. And it's definitely not the time to point you to a certain specific direction on that.
Yes, but you can expect that we won't change our general policy toward deals with gamers, so expect wise monetization and always value for money.
So, GamePressure.com, if you're unaware, is the English version of Graya Online. And originally what they posted was that Cyberpunk 2077 would have microtransactions. Interestingly, they have just now updated their article pretty much saying that we misinterpreted what CDPR's CEO said. They say in a statement update, the message has been corrected because we incorrectly provided information about microtransactions in Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer mode. The developers are just considering monetizing the multiplayer component in the upcoming game, and not, as we wrote, announcing their introduction. We apologize for the error. So the issue here is that many are still up in the air with what monetization necessarily means for Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer component. Does it mean microtransactions, or does it mean a paid expansion? Because those are two complete different things. The problem is that we just know so little about what this multiplayer mode actually is. Like, is this going to be something akin to Grand Theft Auto Online, or is this just going to be a co-op mode? Nobody has any idea. So far, this is what we know. We know that Projekt Red has partnered with a multiplayer studio, Digitalscapes, to work on this. And we also know that the aim for this multiplayer mode is going to include story and lore. One of the developers just a few months ago in September said, and the specific developer that made these comments was CDPR's level designer Max Pierce, who said, I can't say too much on it because it's still going through its process, but it's about making sure that multiplayer fits in with the lore of the world and it feels right. It's about making sure it fits in with who we are as a company as well, because story is so important to us. Plus, it needs to fit in how we design and deliver games. That's why it was important to go through the research and development process with it, to make sure that we're not just throwing something in and that it feels like a CD Projekt Red multiplayer that has our beliefs and design philosophy. For what it's worth, actually just yesterday, someone did ask about microtransactions at the Samurai on Tour gameplay demo. If you don't already know, CD Projekt Red is touring around showing gameplay demos all around the world. And this is what they basically said in the Q&A session. The multiplayer is a whole own game that is still very early in development and done by a complete other team, different from the single-player Cyberpunk 2077 team. The single-player game will have 0 microtransactions, as we've already known for a while, and is a full-scaled experience. We can spend many hundreds of hours playing this game. DLC-wise, we know it will be like The Witcher. The multiplayer, again, will be a separate game, and that's very interesting if it is a complete separate game. That could imply that it's going to be something like free-to-play, or maybe it's going to be a separate paid expansion that you can play without the base game. Anyway, they continue. What we could say for sure is that CD Projekt Red will never rob their fans no matter what pricing model the multiplayer will have. You know what? I trust them. Okay, this is the person giving their own opinion. Now, it should be mentioned that CD Projekt Red has used microtransactions before in Gwent, which is also technically free to play, although it has paid expansions and other forms of monetization systems within it. But based on my conversations with people who actually do play Gwent, most of them, as far as I've seen, have come away with the impression that Gwent is pretty fair with its monetization, especially with it being a free to play game. But personally myself, I would have to take a better look at that myself. Essentially, based at least on this post, CD Projekt Red's response thus far is that we're holding to our values, and it also kind of confirms that there's a separate team working on the multiplayer, which could imply that this is going to be something maybe released separate from the base game. Now, the concerns are real, and this is something that doesn't get discussed enough, and also why I can't give companies the benefit of the doubt, because I've done this too many times over the years with Rockstar Games, Bethesda Game Studios, BioWare. We all gave them the benefit of the doubt, and look at where they are now. Rockstar Games, they release great single-player experiences, but they've never been the same since Grand Theft Auto Online pretty much blew up. They've released less games, and they've pretty much ditched single-player after release, and they've concentrated on the live service. And even Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of Rockstar Games, the executives have said that they want to concentrate on scaling down the single-player experiences in the future and concentrating more on the live service, which definitely calls into question what future single-player experiences from Rockstar Games will look like. With Bethesda Game Studios, it started probably years ago with Horse Armor, but it really escalated once they started to try to monetize their modding community, and then that led to the Creation Club, and then Fallout 76, and now there's questions and concerns about Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6. There's the possibility that both of those games have day one monetization systems in the form of the Creation Club, and maybe even an in-game store like the Atomic Shop, which is in Fallout 76. Now, looking at BioWare, they've also severely been changed by microtransactions and multiplayer. We've seen that with Anthem, even Mass Effect Andromeda, and even before then with Dragon Age Inquisition. And we already know that Dragon Age 4 will be a live service game. But as one former BioWare developer said just about a year or two ago, why do you care about that at Electronic Arts? The reason you care about that is because of microtransactions. Buying card packs in the Mass Effect games, the multiplayer. It's the same reason we added card packs to Mass Effect 3. How do you get people to keep coming back to a thing instead of just playing playing for 60 to 100 hours. So the thing is, if Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer in some shape or form is a live service which has, continuous updates and continues to evolve and is supported with microtransactions, the concern is, what will the future entail? Are we going to see more of these systems in future games? Like, are we going to see a Witcher Online? And that's the problem in this age, why a lot of people are feeling very concerned and very frustrated with this AAA industry. It's not the fact that companies support multiplayer, it's the fact of what it means for single player in the future. We've all seen this rodeo before, in which promises are made and then changed when executives see that massive live service money. It sucks that this entire industry has flocked to mediocre live services which exist with the sole purpose to drain wallets. Sure, single player games are still alive and strong, but it's foolish to believe that these type of experiences have not been severely damaged, or I guess you could say less supported, because of the appeal of much cheaper costing live service multiplayer games that have a higher potential for consistent revenue long term, which is what much of this AAA industry loves. That's what makes me nervous just thinking about the idea of a free-to-play standalone multiplayer Cyberpunk game which is supported through cosmetic microtransactions. It's not really about what it means for today, it's about what it means for tomorrow and the games that come from CD Projekt Red in the future. But in all honesty, I have to say, I think that this situation has been blown out of proportions, unfortunately due to some, I would call it poor journalism, and some horrible headlines which have now proven to be incorrect. Specifically that Gry Online article, which they have now added a correction, that really is what caused all of this chaos to erupt. And now it has been proven to be wrong based on actually listening to the earnings call. Now, there actually has been another response coming from CD Projekt Red. Their community manager took to their official Discord saying, "Nobody even used the word microtransactions. Monetization does not mean microtransactions. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk." Hopefully, we will get a longer, maybe lengthier response from CD Projekt Red on this, but right now it definitely appears that there's a lot of misinformation going around about this situation, and that really is just the best way to describe Cyberpunk 2077 for the last year or two. I remember seeing maybe it was a thumbnail or a title for a video that said Cyberpunk 2077 is stuck in a cycle of stupidity, and I mean, I think that's the best way to describe stuff like this. But to wrap all of this up, what I can say is that concerns are definitely real. And I get it, some people think that I am biased towards CD Projekt Red, and I am. I mean, I'm not even going to argue against that. I am biased towards CD Projekt Red because everything they have said for the last year or two has been what I want this AAA industry to become, what I want all of these gaming companies to be, which is listening to consumers, and hopefully that's what CD Projekt Red does with this. It definitely sounds like, based on that investor call, that they're still in the early stages, still not exactly sure where to go with this multiplayer, and hopefully all of this pushback and anger over the idea of microtransactions will hopefully influence what CD Projekt Red ends up producing with the multiplayer, whatever it actually ends up being. But for right now, it feels very premature, and I really don't know what to make of any of this, because there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of people making assumptions, like calling this Grand Theft Auto Online. That's very premature. We have no idea what it actually will be. What I hope for right now is that in the coming days, CD Projekt Red does put out an official statement, hopefully putting some of these concerns to rest. But for now, it does appear that some of the staff is pushing back on the idea of microtransactions and pointing out that monetization does not necessarily mean microtransactions. It could mean a boatload of other things, like a subscription or a paid expansion. That's definitely what multiplayer could end up being. But for now, we just don't know. It's very early. Multiplayer is still something coming long after release, and we still have the base game coming in like 4 or 5 months, and then we have single player DLC expansions, and then we have multiplayer. So a lot of time from now to then, but I definitely understand a lot of the concerns that people have. But what do you make of all of this? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.